Hi, it's Global Politics with Jim Martin. We're 6 months into the Trump administration, and I thought it would be a useful time to do a bit of an overview of what's happened in terms of international affairs. The first thing that comes to my mind is the acronym VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is a term developed by leadership practitioners in the military back in the 80s and since has been adopted and revised and improved by practitioners in the leadership community writ large in business and elsewhere. That's where we're at. The fundamental rules of the game are either in flux or have been wiped out in the last 6 months with the return of a really aggressive Trump administration. Conflicts continue or increase in this time, dangerous ones. Russia-Ukraine is not over. In fact, it seems to be getting worse. India-Pakistan fought a brief, sharp conflict that was much more serious than folks initially thought. I don't think that's over. The Israeli-Iranian thing is the latest serious conflict that has sprung up out of this. There's no UN to rein these in. These kinds of things would happen in the past where there'd be a quick conflict, UN, various other powers would step in, and things would stop. This is not happening now. There are more one-on-one relationships between the Trump administration and some of these countries that has the potential to solve them or to exacerbate them. And it seems that in most cases, it's the latter. What's next on that front? Venezuela, Guyana, China, Taiwan, the Baltic as a flashpoint between some of our NATO allies and Russia. I don't know. The Balkans, all of these things are possibilities. Hopefully, I am completely wrong and that doesn't happen, but it concerns me that there are so many potentially dangerous flashpoints between major power players that are seemingly going untended. Nuclear proliferation, I've talked about that elsewhere. You can check out my videos on that. That's another point at which you see countries that in the past would have never considered having a nuclear weapons program reconsidering that in light of mostly the United States seeming disdain for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, the disparaging of various allies and threats towards NATO members in the form of we're going to invade Greenland. International trade is, of course, a major subject. For literally decades, the Western industrialized democratic world functioned on free trade and even absorbed markets like China's and Vietnam's and other countries over the decades of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Everyone was moving forward in that regime of open markets, relatively secure sea lanes. That has changed. We're not in that world anymore, and the tariffs kick it off, but a host of other trade practices also make this an incredibly volatile situation. Where we are leaning towards is a protectionist, mercantilist sort of system that we have not seen since, 2 centuries back. That's not great. As somebody who grew up under a free trade mantra, I realize that it's not a panacea, nor has it been free from losers and some winners that we would not want to see attain the heights that they have. Yet I continue to believe that free trade and democracy have been a net positive for the world that has provided substantial benefits to millions of people around the world, regular folks that otherwise would have been in poverty. That is also in play now. The destruction of diplomatic infrastructure. So over the last 6 months, we've seen purges at the State Department, CIA, USAID, and many, many, many other federal agencies that have something to do with international affairs. Most of these have been consolidated in a vertical chain which ends with one person at the top, and that's Donald Trump. If you have a relationship with Donald Trump, then you can try to get his ear and make some sort of deal, arms deals, whatever it happens to be. However, if you can't make that phone call or get that access, it's a big problem. We have stepped away from decades old programs like PEPFAR, which saved the lives of millions and millions of people in Africa. We have abrogated our relationship with the World Health Organization, preventing us from necessarily seeing the threats that may be emerging from just natural biology. Another pandemic could emerge, and we may not be able to be on the forefront of that. These kinds of things are dangerous in a direct sense, but also are scary from the fact that we are unable to build those relationships and have people on the ground in these countries that are sober, skeptical, and conscious of U.S. national interests that can help or make deals or make things happen that make the lives of both those countries' peoples and our lives as U.S. citizens somewhat better. We don't have that visibility anymore. We're losing that soft power influence, and frankly, we're blinding ourselves. The destruction of the intelligence institutions like CIA, NSA, things in the State Department are frightening in that what sort of threats do we face? We're a big country. We've faced terrorism before. It hasn't gone away. There are still terrorist groups out there. There are foreign actors who are conducting espionage in our country right now. Just goes without saying that that's the case. When you take a whole bunch of FBI agents who were covering that kind of stuff, move them over into helping ICE, it's problematic. When you get rid of experienced apolitical bureaucrats in some place like CIA, it's a problem when you disrupt these relationships and you're blinding yourself to these potentials. Maybe we save a bunch of money. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. Finally, I would say that one of the things that we've seen, and we saw this in the first Trump administration, is that he tends to favor autocrats, with the exception of Bibi Netanyahu, who is democratically elected. He tends to talk up people like Putin and Xi and others who are not leaders of democracies. That sends the wrong message as well. I sincerely hope that I am completely wrong about everything I've just talked about, and that bright minds are at the forefront of this and are going to steer us through this period of time and lead us to greater heights as a nation. However, I've seen nothing in the last 6 months that leads me to believe that that's the case. Thank you. If you have comments, please leave them down below, and please subscribe. Only about 10% of folks are. So if you do so, this helps me to continue to produce these analyses. There's a lot of breaking news now. It's tough, but I like to try to keep up with it with reasonable analysis. So I look forward to seeing you on the next one, and have a great day. Thanks.